The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was never truly quiet. Even when no one spoke, the sound of faint hums from translation devices, the breathing of dozens of alien species, and the low vibrations from the station's engines filled the air. Today, however, the noise was sharper, heavier. Voices clashed in different tones, pitches, and languages, all translated into a unified feed. The issue was war. Two powerful empires, the Vakari Dominion and the Saran Unity, were locked in a brutal border conflict. Both sides had been fighting for 5 standard years. Whole colonies were abandoned. Merchant lanes were unsafe. Refugees flooded into neutral space. But the real problem was simple. Neither side was winning, and neither side was willing to stop. At the center of the debate sat High Chancellor Veekwal, a tall, silver-skinned being whose 6 eyes flicked from one speaker to another. Her role was to control the discussion, but today she seemed more like a guard trying to stop a riot. "We cannot allow the war to continue unchecked," declared Ambassador Tilaren of the Zathari. His scaled body shimmered as his voice rose. "Trade has collapsed in 3 sectors. Civilian lives are lost daily. The Council must act." Others shouted in agreement. From the far side of the chamber, a deep, calm voice cut through the noise. "Act, yes, but wisely." The speaker was Zirtal, the oldest member of the Council. His species, the Varnis, were known for their patience and long memories. His fur was white with age, his posture straight despite his years. "You all know the history," he continued. "We have kept one world outside our politics for a reason, a very good reason." Whispers began. Everyone knew which world he meant. Earth. Humanity. For centuries, humans had been left on the edge of galactic affairs. They had the technology to travel the stars and the courage to explore, but they were unpredictable. They did not follow the same logic as most species. In peace, they could be curious, creative, and generous, but in war, they became something else entirely. Zirtal's 6 fingers tapped the desk slowly. "If you involve humans in this conflict, you will not control the outcome. They will not fight the way you expect. They will not stop where you wish them to stop. And when it is over, the galaxy will not be the same." A younger ambassador snorted. "Your fear is outdated, Zirtal. Humans are no different than any other warriors. Give them orders, pay them well, and they will obey." Zirtal's yellow eyes narrowed. "No, humans obey only until they decide the orders are wrong. Then they adapt." The room fell silent for a moment. Then High Chancellor Veekwal spoke. "The question remains. Do we invite humans to mediate this war, or do we keep them uninvolved and watch the conflict burn our borders?" The vote was called. It was not unanimous, far from it, but desperation outweighed caution. The Council approved the plan. A small human delegation would be invited, officially as peace mediators. Zirtal leaned back, his voice low but audible, to anyone near him. "You have made your choice. Now, you will live with it." The arrival. 3 weeks later, a Council transport ship approached Earth's orbit. On board was Captain Aaron Holt, the man chosen to lead the human team. Holt was a tall, broad-shouldered man in his late 30s with short black hair and calm gray eyes. His background was a mix of military and diplomacy, a soldier who knew how to talk or a diplomat who knew how to fight. When the ship docked at the Galactic Council station, Holt stepped onto the platform with quiet confidence. He was dressed in a simple dark blue uniform with no weapons visible. 2 humans followed close behind, Major Sophia Ruiz, a sharp-minded strategist, and Lieutenant Marcus Kane, a logistics expert. High Chancellor Veekwal greeted them with formal words. "Captain Holt, welcome. The Council thanks you for accepting our request. Your mission is to mediate between the Vakari and Saran factions and help us end this war." Holt listened without interrupting. When Vikul finished, he spoke in a calm, even voice. "Thank you, Chancellor. Before I begin, I'll need unrestricted access to the war front." The translators clicked. Several council members stiffened. "Unrestricted?" Ambassador Tilla Wren frowned. "Surely you mean limited, Captain, only the diplomatic zones." "No," Holt said simply. "I mean full access, military positions, supply lines, communication channels, command structures, everything." The room buzzed with alarm. "This is highly irregular," Vikul said carefully. Holt gave a small shrug. "You invited me here to end a war. I can't do that blind." His eyes scanned the chamber. "If you want speeches and handshakes, send another diplomat. If you want results, give me access." The council recessed to discuss privately. Holt stood in the corner, hands clasped behind his back, showing no sign of impatience. Private warnings. While the council debated, Ziertal approached Holt. "You know they expect you to talk, not act," the old Varnis said. "I know," Holt replied. "They don't understand what happens when humans step onto a battlefield. Most species see war as a contest, a set of moves in a long game. Humans treat it like survival. They break the rules. They end it fast, no matter the cost." Holt's lips curved slightly. "And you? Do you think that's a bad thing?" "I think it's inevitable," Ziertal said. "Which is why I warned them not to call you." Holt studied the alien's lined face. "Then why are you warning me?" "Because," Ziertal said quietly, "the galaxy will blame you for whatever comes next. They will forget who invited you." Holt gave a single nod. "That's fine. I'm not here for thanks." Decision. After hours of closed-door argument, the council returned. Vikul announced the decision. "Captain Holt, you will be granted access to the war front. Your delegation will be provided with full security clearance. However, you are reminded that your role is mediation, not military command." Holt's answer was short. Understood. But in his mind, the meaning of mediation was already shifting. That night, in the quarters assigned to him, Holt gathered Ruiz and Kane. "They want peace," he said, "but they're too scared to take the steps needed to get it. That's why we're here." Ruiz leaned forward. "So what's our real mission?" Holt looked at them both. His voice was steady, but there was steel in it. "We end the war. Completely." The next morning, the human team boarded a fast transport to the contested border zone. The alien pilots avoided looking at them too much, as if wary of some unspoken danger. As the ship left the safe lanes and entered the war front's chaotic space, Ruiz stood by the viewport, watching streaks of distant weapons fire. "They think we're here to talk," she said softly. Holt nodded. "Let's keep it that way, until it's too late to stop us." Far behind them, in the Galactic Council chamber, Ziertal sat in silence. He could feel the weight of history, pressing forward, unstoppable, and somewhere deep inside, he knew his warning had been ignored, not out of ignorance, but because the Council wanted a solution so badly, they were willing to unleash something they didn't understand. The humans were here now. The rules of the war were about to change. The Vakari Sahran war front was unlike anything Captain Aaron Holt had ever seen. The humans' transport ship drifted out of jump space and into a region of chaos. Shattered wreckage floated among the stars. Dead ships, some still burning, turned slowly in the void. Fields of drifting debris stretched for thousands of kilometers. Major Sophia Ruiz stood beside Holt at the viewport, scanning the devastation. "Looks like both sides have been busy," she said. Holt's gaze stayed locked on the remains of a cruiser spinning slowly, a hole the size of a small city punched clean through its center. "Busy," he agreed quietly, "and stupid." "Lieutenant." Marcus Kane, seated at the data console, frowned at the tactical readouts. "Neither side has taken ground in months. They're just trading blows." "Wasting lives," Holt said. Let's go see what they're protecting. The command ship. Their first destination was the Vakari flagship, a massive spear-shaped vessel named Dominion's Wrath. Its commander, High Marshal Zorvek, greeted them with stiff formality. "You are the humans the Council sent?" Zorvek's voice was deep and resonant, his 4 golden eyes watching them closely. His armored form towered over the human team. "That's right," Holt said. "Captain Holt. These are Major Ruiz and Lieutenant Kane. We're here to understand the situation." "You are here to negotiate," Zorvek corrected. Holt smiled faintly. "We'll get to that. But first, show me your supply lines." Zorvek tilted his head, clearly confused. "That is military information." "Exactly," Holt replied. "If you want this war to end, I need to know how you fight it, where your fleets are, how your troops are supplied, where your weaknesses are." The Vakari Marshal hesitated, but finally nodded. "Follow me." Rules of engagement. As they toured the ship, Holt noticed something strange. The Vakari had powerful weapons, energy cannons, torpedoes, strike craft, but their firing protocols were extremely restricted. "You can't target supply ships?" Holt asked, raising an eyebrow at a tactical officer. "It is against the war convention," the officer said. "We do not destroy civilian support craft or unarmed transports." Holt stopped walking. "Even if those transports are carrying weapons and soldiers," the officer shifted uncomfortably. "It is tradition," Ruiz muttered under her breath. "Tradition is going to get them killed." Holt's mind was already racing. Rules like this might make sense to aliens who saw war as a ritual, but to humans, it was a weakness just waiting to be exploited. The other side. 2 days later, the human team crossed the battle line under a Council safe passage agreement. The Saran Unity command ship, Radiance of Dawn, was sleeker than its Vakari counterpart, with smooth curves and pale silver hull plating. Their commander, Fleet Mistress Salari, was more welcoming than Zorvek, but equally confident in her side's eventual victory. "We have the resources to continue this war for decades," she said, her silver-blue skin glinting under the lights. "It is only a matter of endurance." Holt studied her war maps and saw the same problem as with the Vakari: rigid, predictable supply lines, protected by the same outdated conventions. "Your fleets are evenly matched," Holt said. "Neither side is going to win like this." Salari raised an eyebrow. "You think humans could do better?" Holt didn't answer directly. "I think humans don't fight by playing games." The first adjustment back aboard their own small command vessel, provided by the Council for Neutrality, Holt gathered Ruiz and Kane in the war room. "They've given us everything we need," Holt said, gesturing at the holographic maps. 2 forces locked in a ritualized war, both terrified of breaking the rules. Kane leaned forward. "And we're not bound by those rules." "Exactly," Holt said. "We can't take sides, but we can adjust things." Ruiz smirked. "What's first?" Holt highlighted a cluster of Sahran supply stations. "We're not going to hit them. We're going to make them disappear. Quietly." The plan was simple. Using stealth drones and misdirection, the humans rerouted several Saran convoys into deep space, away from their intended destinations. No shots fired, no casualties. But within a week, Saran frontline fleets began running low on fuel and ammunition. The Council's growing unease back. At the Galactic Council station, reports started coming in. The war was shifting. The Vakari had scored several victories without major battles. Entire Saran fleets were retreating to resupply. Ambassador Tilaren called an emergency meeting. "This is the humans' doing," he hissed. "They are interfering beyond their mandate." High Chancellor Veckwell frowned. "Their official reports show no direct attacks." Ziertal spoke quietly from his seat. "That is because they fight without being seen. This is how humans operate. They remove the enemy's ability to fight before the enemy even understands what has happened. Winning hearts while supply shortages crippled the Sarans, Holt's team also visited war-torn colonies. They did not come with armed escorts or formal parades. Instead, they brought medical aid, food, and engineering crews from Earth. Alien civilians, long ignored by their own leaders, began to see the humans as protectors. In Vakari and Saran space alike, rumors spread. The humans were here to stop the war, and they cared more for the people than the politicians did. Ruiz treated wounded children in a burned-out Sahran settlement. Kane organized food distribution in a Vakari mining colony. Holt spoke directly to groups of refugees, listening to their stories without the arrogance many alien leaders displayed. In every place they went, trust grew. The second adjustment Holt knew goodwill alone wouldn't end the war. The next step was to hit both sides equally. In a coordinated operation, his team fed false intelligence into each empire's communication network. The Sarans believed the Vakari were preparing an all-out assault on a key border system. The Vakari believed the Sahrans were massing a superweapon. Both sides diverted fleets to defend against attacks that never came. The actual result? Massive gaps in their defensive lines, making further fighting pointless. The confrontation, it didn't take long for alien commanders to realize what was happening. High Marshal Zorvek summoned Holt to his war room. "You are sabotaging this war," Zorvek accused. Holt didn't deny it. "I'm ending it." Fleet Mistress Solari confronted him a day later. "This is not mediation. It is interference." "You called me to stop the war," Holt said evenly. "That's what I'm doing. You just didn't expect me to be good at it." Shock and fear. Within a month, the balance of power was gone. Neither side could sustain the fight. Supply lines were unreliable. Morale was collapsing. Soldiers began questioning why they were fighting at all. In the council chamber, the mood turned to alarm. "They will not stop," Tila Wren warned. "The humans are dismantling the war itself." Zirtal's voice was grim. "That is exactly what I told you would happen." Cliffhanger on the human command ship, Holt looked at the latest war reports. "Ready for the next phase?" Ruiz asked. Holt nodded slowly. "Yes, it's time to finish this." He tapped the console, sending encrypted orders to hidden operatives across the war front. The name of the plan appeared on the screen, Operation Disarm. The first signs of Operation Disarm were almost invisible. No explosions, no sudden invasions. Just silence in places where there used to be noise. A Vakari munitions factory reported that its automated assembly lines had stopped overnight. The engineers found nothing physically broken, but the control software had been replaced with strange, looping code they couldn't undo. A Saran fuel refinery lost half its stored reserves in one night. No leaks, no theft alarms. The fuel was simply gone. Later, they discovered it had been pumped into a massive storage vessel hidden deep in an asteroid belt, its location known only to one small human team. Invisible warfare Holt's plan was simple in concept, impossible to counter in practice. Take away the tools of war without engaging in open battle. Human stealth drones moved like shadows across the war front. Some planted tiny devices that disrupted power grids. Others hijacked automated cargo haulers and sent them wandering aimlessly into deep space. On both sides, military engineers were baffled. They checked their systems for sabotage and found nothing. It was as if the universe itself had decided their war was no longer worth fueling. Major Sofia Ruiz coordinated most of these operations from their command ship, her fingers flying across multiple holoscreens. "We're hitting 10 supply depots this week alone," she said to Holt, "and that's just the ones they'll notice right away." Lieutenant Marcus Kane grinned. "By the time they figure out what's happening, they'll be too busy putting out fires to fight us." The political panic on the Galactic Council station, chaos spread just as fast as on the battlefield. Ambassador Tila Ren slammed his claws onto the desk during an emergency session. "This is an invasion in all but name. The humans are dismantling sovereign military infrastructure." High Chancellor Veekwell tried to keep control. "They have not attacked anyone directly. Do you think that matters?" Tila Ren shouted. "If the Vakari and Sarans collapse, the humans will control this entire sector." Zirtal's calm voice cut through the shouting. "You are wrong. They will not control it. They will leave it empty. That is what you do not understand. Humans do not need to rule what they have defeated." Veekwell turned to the old Varnus. "And that is supposed to make this better?" "No," Zirtal said quietly. "It makes it worse, because nothing you do will stop them once they have decided to end your war." The commanders' meeting for the first time in the entire war, the leaders of the two warring sides met face to face, not to negotiate peace, but to complain. High Marshal Zorvek of the Vakari and Fleet Mistress Selari of the Sarans stood together in the central chamber of the human command ship. Neither looked pleased. "This must stop," Zorvek growled. "Your interference is destroying the stability of both our empires." Holt stood with his hands clasped behind his back. "That's the idea." Solari's voice was cold. "We agreed to mediation, not sabotage." "You agreed to stop the war," Holt corrected. "You just didn't mean it." Ruiz stepped forward, showing a projection of destroyed supply chains and disabled weapons factories. "We've reduced both your war capacities by 60% in the last month. In 2 more, you'll be at 20%. At that point, you won't have the means to keep fighting even if you wanted to." Zorvek's golden eyes narrowed. "You think we will allow that?" Holt smiled faintly. "You can't stop it." The warfront's reaction phase. Operation Disarm continued. Frontline soldiers on both sides found themselves idle. Without supplies, their fleets were forced to stay docked. Patrols were canceled. Battles were postponed indefinitely. At first, officers tried to maintain discipline. But when food rations shrank and power cells became scarce, morale collapsed. Some Vakari crews abandoned their posts, returning to their home colonies. Saran officers reported open questioning of orders. In some places, mixed groups of Vakari and Saran deserters began cooperating just to survive, something unthinkable only weeks earlier. Rumors spread quickly. The humans were behind it all, and they weren't here to conquer. They were here to end the war, whether anyone wanted it or not. Council ultimatum finally. The Galactic Council summoned Holt to answer for his actions. The Great Hall was tense when he entered. Dozens of alien eyes followed him as he walked to the central platform. "Captain Holt," Veekwell began, "the Council demands that you halt your operations immediately. Your methods are destabilizing entire regions." Holt stood calmly. "Good. That means it's working." Tila Ren's scales glinted under the lights. "You have overstepped your authority. If you do not stop, we will revoke your mandate and order you to leave Council space." Holt's voice didn't rise, but the steel in it was unmistakable. "If you remove us, the war will continue. If we stay, it will be over in weeks. You called us here because you were too afraid to act." "Well, we're acting." Zirtal leaned forward. "And what happens after the war is over?" Holt looked at him for a moment, then answered simply, "We go home, unseen." Threat while the Council debated, not all alien leaders were content to wait. In a hidden dockyard on the edge of Saran space, Admiral Kavan, a veteran commander with no patience for politics, assembled a strike fleet. His plan was bold. Launch a surprise attack on the human command ship, destroy their operational hub, and blame the attack on unknown pirates. But Kavan underestimated human intelligence work. 2 days before the attack, Holt's team intercepted encrypted transmissions detailing every part of the plan. Ruiz rerouted the human command ship to a different sector under the cover of a routine inspection. When Kavan's fleet arrived at the supposed target location, they found nothing but empty space and a single message probe. The probe played a short video of Holt, staring straight into the camera. "You're not the first to try that," Holt said. "You won't be the last, but you will fail, every time." Escalation. The failure of Kavan's plan only accelerated the collapse of the war effort. Weapon stockpiles dwindled. Energy grids went dark in entire military districts. Replacement parts for ships never arrived. On some worlds, local governments declared themselves neutral rather than continue supporting the conflict. It was no longer just a war between two empires. It was a war against the humans, a war that neither side could fight. Cliffhanger. In the war room of the human command ship, Ruiz updated the situation map. The red and blue lines marking the front were fading away, replaced by gray zones of inactivity. "It's working," she said. "Another 2 weeks and they'll have no fight left in them." Holt studied the map in silence. Then he looked up. "Time to talk to the council again," he said. "This time we're not asking for permission. We're telling them how it ends." The Galactic Council's Great Hall felt more like a battlefield than a chamber of politics. Representatives from 100 worlds spoke at once, their voices overlapping into a wall of sound. Hollow screens flashed with images of darkened shipyards, empty supply depots, and fleets sitting idle in dry dock. The war between the Vakari Dominion and the Sahran Unity had slowed to a crawl, not because of any treaty, but because the humans had made it impossible to keep fighting. High Chancellor. Vequel slammed a clawed hand against her desk. "Order! This chamber will have order!" Slowly, the noise died down, though the tension remained. "Captain Aaron Holt," Vequel said, her 6 eyes narrowing at the humans standing in the center of the hall. "You have been summoned to explain your actions. You have gone beyond mediation. You have interfered in the internal military affairs of sovereign powers." Holt stood calmly, hands behind his back. His dark blue uniform was spotless, his expression unreadable. "I have done exactly what you brought me here to do," he said evenly. "I am ending the war. That is not your decision to make." Ambassador Tillaren's scales shone as he leaned forward. "You do not dictate terms to the council." Holt's voice was steady, but every word felt like it carried weight. "You've had 5 years to end this conflict, and you failed. You sent us because you wanted results. Now you have them, but I won't stop halfway just because you've grown nervous." The ultimatum. A quiet murmur spread through the hall as Holt stepped forward. "1 week from today," Holt said, "the war will be over. Whether you approve or not, there will be no weapons factories left, no fleets capable of launching an attack, no supply lines to keep armies in the field. You can either help us rebuild afterward, or you can get out of the way." "You threaten the council?" Vequel's voice was low. "Dangerous." "I warned the council," Holt replied. "Just like Ziertal warned you before you called us." Every head in the chamber turned to the old Varnus diplomat. Ziertal's white fur shifted as he gave a slow nod. "I told you this would happen. You ignored me. The last gamble while." The council argued among themselves. A small group of alien leaders began planning in secret. The Vakari High Marshal Zorvek and the Saran Fleet Mistress Salari, former enemies, met in a hidden chamber on the station. "We cannot let the humans dictate our future," Zorvek growled. Salari agreed, her silver-blue skin glinting in the dim light. "If they dismantle our fleets entirely, we will have nothing left. No defense, no deterrent." "What do you propose?" Zorvek asked. Salari tapped a control panel, revealing a hologram of a massive orbital weapons array. The Ion, Sun. "It's incomplete, but it can fire once. Enough to vaporize the human command ship." Zorvek's golden eyes narrowed. Risky. If we fail, nothing changes, Salari said coldly. If we succeed, the human interference ends. Ziertal's visit. That same night, Ziertal visited Holt in his private quarters. They are going to try to kill you, Ziertal said without preamble. Holt looked up from his data tablet. When? Soon. Before your 1 week runs out. Zorvek and Salari are desperate. They believe destroying your command ship will undo your influence. Holt leaned back in his chair. Will you warn them off? Ziertal's yellow eyes were sad. They would not listen. And perhaps they must learn the lesson the hard way. Then we'll be ready, Holt said. The trap 2 days later, the Ion Sun weapons array powered up in orbit above a neutral moon. The energy spike was impossible to hide. On the human command ship, Major Sophia Ruiz studied the readings. That's not a mining station. That's a gun. Lieutenant Marcus Kane's fingers flew over his console. Trajectory confirms. They're targeting us. Holt didn't look surprised. Good. Let them think we're sitting still. Within the hour, the human ship appeared to take up a stationary position near a supply asteroid. From the Ion Sun's sensors, it was the perfect target. But the humans weren't there. A stealth drone had projected a false image of the command ship, while the real vessel hid in the asteroid's shadow, cloaked and silent. When the Ion Sun fired, the massive beam cut through empty space. In the same moment, human strike drones launched from concealment, latching onto the weapon array's power relays and detonating shaped charges. The array went dark before it could fire again. The message minutes later, every military channel in Vakari and Sahran space received the same transmission. Holt appeared on screen, his voice calm. You tried to kill us. It didn't work. The difference between you and us is that we don't need to kill you to win. But if you try again, we won't. Hold back. The transmission ended, leaving silence on every bridge it played on. The final push after, the failed assassination attempt, Holt accelerated Operation Disarm. Weapons depots were stripped bare. Shipyards were dismantled piece by piece. Fuel convoys vanished into deep space. Entire orbital defense stations shut down without a shot fired. On the council station, reports came in faster than they could be processed. This is no longer a war, Ziertal told the council. It is a dismantling, and when it is finished, there will be nothing left to fight with. Confrontation in the hall. The final confrontation came 3 days before Holt's 1-week deadline. The council chamber was filled with tension as Holt stood before the assembly. You cannot continue this, Veequel insisted. Entire sectors are defenseless. Defenseless against who? Holt asked. You've all been so busy fighting each other that you've forgotten there's no one else here to attack you. Peace doesn't need fleets the size of moons. Salari's voice was bitter. And who decides how much defense we need? You? Holt's answer was simple. No, you decide. After the war is gone. Breaking point, the chamber was silent. No one dared to speak. Holt looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every ambassador. 1 week was generous. You have 3 days now. After that, there will be nothing left to fight over. He turned and walked out, Ruiz and Kane following, without a word. As the doors closed behind them, Ziertal whispered into the heavy silence. You wanted humans to solve your problem. This is what that looks like. The galaxy had never been this quiet. For centuries, the sound of war fleets and orbital bombardments had been part of life for many civilizations. But now, the massive empires that had been locked in a bitter conflict were silent. Their fleets sat powerless in dry docks. Their war factories stood cold, and soldiers who had been enemies for generations were now guarding food convoys together. The reason for this sudden peace stood in the center of the Galactic Council Hall. Captain Aaron, Holt of Earth. The alien leaders watched him with a mix of fear and respect. His human advisors stood beside him, their faces calm but their eyes sharp, scanning every movement in the massive chamber. It had been only 6 weeks since humans had arrived, but in that time they had done what no alien government or peace agreement could achieve: end the war completely. Ziertal, the old diplomat who had once warned the Council against involving humans, stepped forward. His long, scaled body moved slowly, his silver eyes fixed on Holt. "It is over," Ziertal said softly. "You have done it. But you have also changed everything." Holt gave a small nod. "We didn't come here to take sides. We came here to end the bloodshed. That was the deal." One of the alien emperors, a tall figure with crystalline armor, rose from his seat. His voice echoed across the hall. "You destroyed our war machines. You shut down our fleets. You removed our power to defend ourselves. How can we trust that? Earth will not use this to rule us." Holt's voice was steady, almost too calm. "Because we're leaving." The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Many aliens didn't believe what they were hearing. Leaving? After gaining so much control? It made no sense. Major Sophia Ruiz stepped forward. "Humans do not want your territories. We do not want your tribute. We only wanted the fighting to stop, for good." The alien leaders looked at each other in disbelief. In their history, no power had ever walked away from total victory. Conquest was the normal path, but humans were different. Outside the hall, the proof of human intentions was already visible. Instead of building military bases, human engineers were repairing alien cities. Instead of looting resources, they were delivering food, medicine, and clean water. Instead of forcing alien soldiers into surrender camps, they were retraining them to protect civilians. Even alien civilians who had feared humans now spoke of them with strange admiration. They called them the warriors who come to stop war. But not everyone was at peace. Ambassador Tila Ren, who had opposed human involvement from the start, confronted Ziertal in a private corridor. "This is dangerous," Tila Ren said sharply. "They can end any war they touch. That kind of power will make the galaxy fear them, and eventually fight them." Ziertal's voice was quiet, but firm. "Fear is better than bloodshed. And if the Council remembers this lesson, we will never need to call them again." Tila Ren frowned. "And if we forget?" Ziertal gave a slow, grim smile. "Then we will remember why the warning exists." Back in the hall, Holt approached the central podium. Every leader was watching him. "When we arrived," he began, "you wanted mediation. But you didn't really want peace. You wanted to win. So we gave you something better. No winners, no losers. Just an end to the killing." He looked around the room, his gaze locking with each alien leader. "Understand this. We don't fight to conquer. We fight to finish. If you want endless battles, leave humans out of it. But if you want it to end, call us, and know that when we arrive, there will be no going back." No one spoke. The silence was heavier than any shout. Holt stepped down from the podium and walked toward the exit, his team following him. The human delegation moved with the quiet confidence of soldiers who had completed their mission. On the orbital docks above the Council world, the human fleet was preparing to leave. Massive warships, sleek, deadly, and terrifying to behold, stood ready to jump back to Earth space. They had come with firepower enough to level continents, yet they had used it with precision and restraint. Lieutenant Marcus Kane joined Holt at the observation deck, looking out at the alien worlds below. "They'll never forget this," Kane said. "They're not supposed to," Holt replied. "The point wasn't just to stop this war. It was to make sure they never start another one." Kane smirked. "Think they'll listen?" Holt's expression was unreadable. "For a while. But history shows people always forget. And when they do, we'll be ready." in the final meeting. With Ziertal, the old diplomat offered a formal bow. "I warned them not to involve you," Ziertal said. "They didn't listen. Now, they will remember." Holt extended a hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Ziertal shook it. "You may have just saved millions of lives, Captain Holt, but you've also scared the galaxy." "Good," Holt said simply. "Fear can keep people alive." Hours later, as the human fleet prepared for departure, a final transmission was sent to the Galactic Council. It was short, simple, and carried Holt's voice. "Call us again, and you'd better mean it." The message ended. Moments later, the human warships jumped into hyperspace, vanishing from alien space entirely. Weeks passed. The empires began to rebuild. Trade resumed between species that had been enemies for lifetimes. New treaties were signed, all with a clause: no interference from Earth unless invited by unanimous council vote. The warning became a saying, whispered in political halls and military briefings. Don't involve humans in your conflicts, because everyone now knew if humans came, the war would not just change, it would end, and no one could predict what that ending would look like. On Earth, Holt sat in a quiet cafe, far from the stars and politics. He sipped his coffee, watching people laugh and live without knowing how close the galaxy had been to another century of war. Ruiz joined him, setting down her own drink. "Think they'll call us again?" Holt smirked. "They will, eventually. Someone always thinks they can control the chaos. And when that happens..." He leaned back in his chair. "We'll be ready to finish the job again." The two of them sat in comfortable silence, the hum of life around them so different from the echo of war. Far away, in the Galactic Council archives, Ziertal recorded the final note on the incident. The humans came as mediators. They left as peacemakers. They do not seek conquest. They seek conclusion. Invite them at your own risk. And remember, once humans arrive, there is no going back.